Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 131 Uchiha Madara. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. The Konoha groups continued running through the forest as they tried to shake off the stone ninjas, heading towards the border in the Fire Country as they attempted to kill Minato. They quickly moved over the trees. Minato saw this and began to act. I have a good stock of paper bombs, so stay alert while I set them up, he said as he began placing numerous paper bombs in the trees they passed, putting some on kunais that fell directly to the ground. He did this for 200 meters, placing all kinds of paper bombs in spots not visible to the pursuers, while kunais began to advance against them. They are catching up to us, exclaimed an Umbu ninja from the Konoha group. Minato? Jiraiya spoke to his student. Not yet. I need as many of them as possible to enter the paper bomb field, Minato said, sensing only a few ninjas in that space. They continued this for another 2 minutes until Minato finally felt it was the ideal moment and placed an activated paper bomb, which caught flames, with the stone ninjas passing right by it. Wait! That's a paper bomb! He immediately shouted as he smelled burning and looked back, but it was already too late. As soon as that paper bomb exploded, another caught in a nearby tree also exploded, causing others to activate as well, creating a series of chain explosions, while dozens of ninjas could not react. Boom! 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 An entire line where Minato had passed exploded soon after as trees and earth were devastated under the dark sky of this country, with bird women flying at this moment away from the explosions throughout the forest. You caught them right there. Jiraiya had to admit it was a good tactic. Yes, but most of them managed to resist, Minato murmured, feeling with his haki. Be careful, they're going to perform a large-scale jutsu, he exclaimed as everything began to tremble. The next moment, a straight line advanced towards them as the entire ground shattered with the earth cracking like an earthquake. Some ninjas were caught while trying to move away with stones flying and trees falling. Stay in formation and prepare for battle, an Umbu immediately exclaimed, and all the ninjas went into combat mode as some of them went to rescue their injured comrades. Over 100 stone ninjas appeared at this moment as they ran towards the Konoha ninjas. Minato saw this and decided to give everyone more time while advancing, creating a Raisin Shuriken that quickly glowed as he launched it directly at the ninjas with his chakra already quite recovered, while the jutsu moved at high speed. This jutsu is powerful, prepare a barrier, the stone ninjas exclaimed as they quickly created a huge wall of stones rising from the ground and standing between them and Minato's jutsu, which hit the rocks before exploding. The jutsu quickly consumed all the rock in front of it and caught the first jutsus as the huge explosion continued spreading. Let's go now. This is our chance, Minato exclaimed as everyone came out of their daze seeing that giant energy dome consuming everything. There was no reason for Minato to hide this jutsu from everyone. After all, he had already used it in the south and in the fight against the sand ninjas in the first camp and against the Jinchuriki. This gave him a great advantage as the stone ninjas were now cautious, with several high-ranking ninjas who had created the barrier simply disappearing caught by the explosion. They even tried to catch up to the Konoha ninjas, but in the end lost, with them finally reaching the northern camp advanced post as they entered the border. We lost them, said a frustrated ninja. We didn't catch any of their ninjas, but they killed at least 50 of us. How is that possible? Another ninja exclaimed indignantly about the situation the group found themselves in. Let's go back to the Stone Country, before the ninjas from AIM show up or even Konoha with reinforcements. The ninja spoke in the end as they turned around and headed north. It seems we have finally arrived, and Umbu said as the Konoha ninjas were welcomed by several ninjas at the advanced camp. You're all right? Jiraiya approached Minato. Yes. Minato commented. Your last jutsu was quite surprising. Jiraiya couldn't help but comment upon seeing the Raisin Shuriken for the first time, while Minato simply nodded. The boy has evolved the jutsu he created, the Rasengan, with Nature Chakra, which is already very difficult, turning the jutsu into a high-scale explosion, but he also learned to mold chakra into a control that this boy can simply throw. Where did he learn to control his chakra in such a refined way? Jiraiya couldn't help but murmur internally, looking at his student. Anyway, he resumed speaking. Let's return to the camp, after all, we need to talk. He had a harsher tone now, and Minato followed him. In the north, things were not good for the stone ninjas. What they thought was a good play ended up being a very bad consequence, having a ninja full of S-rank jutsus, paper bombs, being able to move from one place to another, attacking them out of pure vengeance, leading to the ruin of two camps closest to the Land of Fire. How is the situation? Kitsuchi, that Sachikage's own son, appeared to learn the reports of the camp devastated with paper bombs as the day began to dawn on the horizon. Are you saying he entered the camp, placed hundreds of paper bombs and disappeared, activating all of them, and no one noticed? He asked angrily to the ninjas. No, my lord, you know his teleportation jutsu is instantaneous. We can do nothing against him when he simply wants to disappear. The reporting ninja informed. You are right. Kitsuchi had to admit, after all, with so much pressure wanting to find a culprit, but he sighed before continuing. He killed 120 ninjas in that attack, counting the more than 450 he killed in the first camp. We ended up having the fury of a small monster born in Konoha. He admitted, no one would believe that a 12-year-old child killed almost 600 ninjas in 2 nights. How is Rashi? He asked. He is fine, but seems shaken. The ninja spoke. Let me see him. He spoke and followed to the tent where the young Jinchuriki was. After all, it was Kitsuchi who summoned him to hunt Minato in the Land of Rain if the boy were there, and even there, the boy managed to attack the camp before he got into conflict with the Jinchuriki. Can you talk? Kitsuchi approached Rashi, who was sitting drinking a hot beverage. Yes. The Jinchuriki didn't even look at him. Can you tell me what happened and how a boy fought against you, leaving you in a quite critical state? Kitsuchi asked curiously. That boy is a monster. I've never been close to death until I met him. Even my 4 tails chakra layer was useless. He said calmly. How did he do that? Can you tell what his abilities are? What happened to your squad? He insisted on knowing. After all, he needed to deliver a report to his father. You already know he can teleport, right? He appeared with one of those strange kunais and threw an energy ball at us. I was the only one who survived with my chakra layer. No one even had time to react. Tried to catch him, but he managed to jump in midair as if it were solid. I've never seen anything like it. He murmured. Stepping in midair? Is that how he manages to enter camps and throw those kunais? Kitsuchi murmured before asking Rashi. Can he fly? No. I don't think so. He used his feet to jump in the air. And before you ask another thing, the boy can use 3 different elements. He managed to pierce my chakra layer with a penetrating lightning jutsu. I almost died in that moment. There was a moment when he launched that destruction jutsu, and as soon as it ended, I swear I saw him move at high speed, so much that I couldn't react. Then Hanzo, the salamander, appeared and saved me. He spoke. So the boy has 2 S-rank jutsus and various strange tricks. Kitsuchi concluded, thinking what else this boy could be hiding. After all, it seemed deeper than it appeared. 3. Rashi said. Kitsuchi looked confused. He has 3 S-rank jutsus. You should have seen the giant lightning dragon he threw at Hanzo, as big as that wind element jutsu that killed all my guards, he said, leaving Kitsuchi even more thoughtful. All right. I'll inform my father, he said as he left the tent, and was informed that the ninjas who were pursuing the target had failed and lost a dozen of them, which made him even more frustrated, but he had no choice but to put that in the report. I want you to deliver this to Sachikage-sama urgently in the village. After writing everything he heard about the losses and the current threat that they had until now only underestimated, Kitsuchi wrote the letter to his father. What do you think will happen? A ninja next to Katsuchi asked as he watched the messenger ninja enter the land of stone. I don't know. But my father will not stay quiet while there is a ninja in Konoha who can kill 632 ninjas and leave a traumatized Jinchuriki alive in this war. He will surely act, Katsuchi said in the end. Meanwhile, in the giant buildings made with water circulation pipes, Hanzo was thinking as he looked at the rain falling. I was counting on a victory over Konoha in this war, but it seems that Konoha will be the victor if things continue this way, Hanzo murmured. In the land of waterfalls, in an underground cave, with an old man sitting in front of a giant and strange flower, both Setsus appeared at this moment as they began to report everything they saw that happened in the land of rain between Minato and Hanzo. The old man listened in silence as one Zetsu spoke in a dark tone and the other had a more cheerful voice, even making jokes. So the name of this boy is Minato Namikaze. The old man opened one of his eyes, while his Sharingan glowed in that darkness. Yes. He is very powerful for his age, must be at a Kage level, the black Zetsu spoke in his dark tone. I remember the Namikaze clan, they were destroyed in the first ninja war. They were not very important. So I am surprised that one of them survived and has this level joining Konoha, the old man spoke calmly. What shall we do? The war does not seem to be ending any time soon, the white Zetsu asked cheerfully. As long as the cycle of hatred continues, the fight will never end. That's why I, Uchiha Madara, will start my plans, he announced. I will give you instructions now on how we will begin to act. The son of the woman we kidnapped from the Uzumaki clan must be ready to start feeling the pain of this world created by Hashirama. He spoke as the Zetsus waited, but Madara could not help but look up with his Sharingan. Do you see, Hashirama? This is the world you sought? Full of war. You failed, but I will succeed. I will execute the infinite Tsukuyami. He declared internally. Chapter 132 Punishment. Third-person POV. Land of Fire, Year 38. Minato arrived at the camp with Jiraiya, and it didn't take long for some ninjas to greet Jiraiya while Makoto and Hanabi quickly approached, despite the latter having just left the infirmary. Minato, how are you? Makoto approached with some concern while Hanabi seemed to share the same look. I'm fine, but a bit exhausted from fighting for a few days in a row. Minato commented. You went out alone to attack an enemy camp at the stone border, are you crazy? Hanabi spoke with a tone mixed with anger and concern for Minato. I acted based on my emotions. I didn't think much. I just wanted to respond to the stone ninjas for what they did. Minato said, now with a cooler head, realizing he acted recklessly alone, but he doesn't regret anything, even though his hands are now dirtier with blood than ever before, but he wasn't a kind of Naruto, nor were they in a time of peace after the Third War. Minato quickly used his haki to check the medical tent and saw that he no longer felt a presence there. He turned to the girls with a somber look. Where is Bake? He asked. The girls looked at each other, with hesitant and worried expressions, before one of them looked back at Minato. He died yesterday. He couldn't bear his injuries anymore, Hanabi spoke with a sad tone while looking at Minato and his reaction. Minato seemed to frown at this but nothing more while maintaining a poker face. I understand. He murmured, angry about it, but he also didn't see any hope of Bake surviving after seeing him in that state. So, it wasn't that surprising. This was a real world and not the fictional story of Naruto or even his time a few decades from now. In these dark times, people died easily, companions you formed bonds with might not be here from one moment to the next, and even though Minato had thought about this, it was a shock to see one of his companions die every time it happened. Anyway, Minato couldn't be kind in this war, he would fight and destroy all his enemies before they harmed his allies and friends. Hearing Minato act indifferently after only saying one word upon hearing the news, the girls looked on knowing he was enraged again. Leave the conversation for later. Let's go to my tent, boy. Jiraiya appeared again, after talking to some jonins at the camp. Minato nodded and left his companions while he followed his teacher. We'll be waiting for you, Minato, Makoto said as Minato walked away. Jiraiya entered the tent with Minato behind and went to his desk, picking up a kettle and pouring a cup of tea. Do you want some tea? He offered. Minato shook his head while Jiraiya closed the kettle and drank his tea before speaking to his student again. Do you have any idea what you've done, Minato? Jiraiya began with a more serious tone. I retaliated, Minato shrugged with a rebellious tone. I'm not going to deny that you gave a good response to those bastards from the north after what they did. You didn't just devastate one camp but two of them, according to the latest reports we've received. However, that doesn't change the fact that you acted recklessly. It could have cost dearly. We had to move resources to rescue you, Jiraiya said. Sensei, I acted on my own. The responsibility is mine. Even if you hadn't shown up, I could have escaped calmly. I only stayed because you appeared, Minato said in the same tone. Do you think this is a joke, Minato? I know you're angry. I'm angry too. Believe me, I wanted to kill that bastard as much as you did, but you can't put yourself at risk and move forward for revenge with such a hot head. Jiraiya said. I don't know why you're all so worried. The responsibility is mine, Sensei, Minato said stubbornly. He didn't understand why the village kept sending reinforcements just to rescue him when he could handle the situation. Because you are important to this village, Minato. Jiraiya raised his voice, catching Minato by surprise. You are the future of this village. No one would hesitate to sacrifice themselves to save you, Jiraiya responded. I'm not asking for that, Sensei, Minato also raised his voice. I don't want anyone to save me and no one to die for me. I can take care of myself, he said firmly. Do you think you're just an unknown kid now? Most people in this war have already heard of you and know your potential. People talk about you, Minato, a boy who masters not just one, but two jutsus that can devastate an entire camp. Jiraiya countered Minato's recklessness and continued before the boy could say anything. You've saved many people and they remember that. You're observed by everyone with your actions, and they are commented on by everyone with each act you perform. Even here in the north, while you were operating in the south, they know the Phantom Division because of you. Even here, when people wonder where you went, many already know you operate under the codename Lumia. What I want to say, Minato, Jiraiya spoke while the boy remained silent this time, is that you shouldn't act impulsively anymore, fighting out of anger. No matter how strong you are, there will be thousands of enemies after you. Maybe you can escape, yes, but the Leaf Village won't spare any efforts to rescue you. And if they have to sacrifice 1,000 people for you to survive, our ninjas will do that. What I want is for you to be more analytical. Don't go around destroying everything alone. You will be a future leader in Konoha. You will have a team in the future and will be a teacher to Genins just as I am to you. You will also be a commander of a camp like I am, and possibly someone even beyond that, someone who will have the most important role of protecting not just a team or a camp, but the entire village. I want you to be prepared for that. Jiraiya said in a lighter tone, while Minato seemed to think. Minato said nothing, with his sensei's words echoing in his mind. You will be out of the field for a few months, Jiraiya resumed speaking to his now calmer student. This will be your punishment. He gave his sentence. Minato immediately looked as if he was being wronged. But my team needs me, Minato quickly replied. He didn't want to be away from the Phantom Division while they were managing to change the war in the south a bit. Don't worry, others will need you while you will have another role within the border, Minato. I will take you out of the Phantom Division for this time, and meanwhile, I want you to take command of the forward post at the end of the border. After all, now the stone ninjas are enraged and have launched attacks all the time. I want you to organize the forward post to ensure no one crosses into our border. You won't be out of combat, but you will be responsible for organizing the defense of the border and the lives of your comrades, Jiraiya began to speak. You can't be serious. I'll be in charge of a camp, even if not the 12 officers. How can I, a boy, command one of these places? No one will want to listen to a child. Especially adult Jonins, it's hard to believe. Minato couldn't believe what he heard and spoke with a skeptical tone. Of course, I won't leave you alone. There will be a Jonin from the Nara clan to assist you as your assistant. He has the authority to act if you make a wrong decision. Do you understand? Besides, you will surely gain the respect of most ninjas in this war after hearing that a boy alone attacked 2 camps of the Stone Village, fought the Four-Tails Jinchuriki alone, and faced Hanzo, also alone, in the last 2 days, Jiraiya asked and then quickly gave his answer. If you say so. Minato listened in silence but nodded at his teacher's reasoning. Remember, you are not authorized to enter the Land of Rain without my permission or until the punishment is over. Understood? Jiraiya said, and Minato ended up nodding to this. And in case of an emergency? You know I can act faster than any other ninja in Konoha. Besides, no matter what you say, I won't let Konoha ninjas die if their lives can be saved, Minato said with a stubborn tone. Well, that's an exception, and your Jonin will be aware of it. But yes, in case of an emergency, you have the authority to act on your own. Jiraiya nodded and began writing on a scroll while explaining a few more things to Minato. In the end, the teenager sighed and left the tent, heading to another tent that Jiraiya had assigned to him, picking one of the available ones, while trying to rest a bit. However, he didn't rest for long, as there were 2 presences near the tent the entire time, and Minato went to see them. Hanabi and Makoto were still looking at him with concern as he came out to talk to them. How are you? He asked, trying to maintain a more pleasant atmosphere, better than before. We're fine, but are you okay too? Makoto asked, concerned. I am. But where is Bake's body? He asked, wanting to say goodbye to the boy who called Minato his big brother. He was taken away. All the dead are stored in a scroll and sent to the village, where their families hold the burial, Makoto said. I see. I hope his family will be all right then. Let's go somewhere else. It's been a long time since we've had time to talk, Minato said. They nodded and walked to a small training area near the camp, where there was a stream. Sitting by the river, Minato tried to have a more pleasant moment with his companions, starting to spend time while the kids shared some of their training from the past year. Makoto could create electricity in her hand, showing she had started to master the lightning element. Meanwhile, Hanabi demonstrated her palm, making a cut in a tree. She was at the same level as Makoto regarding her second element. That's good. Maybe in a year or 2, you will start doing first jutsus missions. I'm sure I can help you with my arsenal. You'll be powerful with these jutsus of mine, Minato said, while the girls nodded gratefully. He ended up sharing some of his experiences over the past few months with the Phantom Division, and it seemed that this might have come to an end at this point. You will be the supervisor of the forward post? They were surprised by Minato's new task of taking care of the small camp, which served as a primary defense against invaders and organized attacks in the Land of Rain. Minato was not authorized to attack the foreign country, instead, he would be taking care of the strategies and organizing the defense. That's good, Minato. Jiraiya-sensei sees a lot of potential in you, Makoto gave her opinion. Yes, he is preparing you to become a great leader, Hanabi shared her opinion as well. I hope I do well. I learned a lot by assisting camp leaders across the borders. Let's see if I can handle this, Minato said. After all, until now, he only knew how to be a weapon of destruction. This leadership role was a bit different from what he had been doing. While Minato reflected on the strange events, Jiraiya had to write a report for his sensei. He began to write everything that had happened, except for one thing. The strange power that emanated from Minato, causing many in the camp to faint without knowing how he had done it. It seemed to be something Minato created without realizing it, attacking anyone before disappearing. Boy, what was that? What kind of powers do you still possess in your strange body? Jiraiya had long noticed that Minato's body was strange. He had abilities that no one else could have, and the strangest thing of all was that he had never seen the boy hurt. This was extremely shocking to Jiraiya, but he left none of this information in the report. After all, to Jiraiya, Minato was his precious student, and that was all that mattered. The events carried out by Minato began to circulate first along the border of the Land of Fire, and Ketsuchi's scroll reached the Stone Village. The Tsuchikage received the report. Although he had not made any moves in the war yet, with the only active Kage in the World Ninja War being the Raikage at the border against the Land of Fire dealing with the famous White Fang, he was prepared to act at any moment if needed. Despite his country being at war with the Land of Clouds, he had to focus not only on the southern border. But Tsuchikage looked at the reports and couldn't be more surprised. He read the reports of how his village had just lost many soldiers to a single Konoha ninja, which indicated how much potential this child had. Even more so, this boy was not fully developed and already demonstrated having 3 S-rank jutsus along with other strange abilities, something that was frightening even to him. "I will have to act," he murmured, as he closed the report and called his council to discuss the next steps the village would take. Chapter 133, Nagato. Third-person POV. Land of Fire, Year 38. In Konoha, Hiruzen received a report 3 days after the events on the western border, as he sat in his office and read calmly, rising agitatedly with each line he saw in that report. First, he was frustrated by the sudden attacks from 2 enemy countries in the south and north. But in the south, an immediate response from a group managed to repel them, thanks to the division of which Minato was a part. However, the north did not have such great success, as the stone found an opening through the country of waterfalls and attacked the camp with one part coming from the rain and another from the northern country, causing great losses. Nevertheless, Minato had reappeared and launched a counterattack on his own, disobeying his sensei, but ended up decimating hundreds of ninjas from 2 stone camps alone, while he was found fighting against Hanzo and holding the fight. In the Konoha report, it was said that Minato used 2 S-rank jutsus. Neither Hiruzen nor anyone from Konoha saw the Kirin Jutsu in the sky, so it was not included in this report. He really is growing up fast. Hiruzen would be lying if he said he wasn't jealous of this boy's potential. The current Hokage was known in the village as the Shinobi God by most of the citizens, but the real ninjas knew that title belonged to Hanzo. Not even the Kages acted recklessly against the leader of AIM. Yet here was a boy who possessed 2 S-rank jutsus while he, Hiruzen, did not own any. Hiruzen had a large amount of chakra, mastery of all elements with a great teacher, being the second Hokage. However, he saw himself as inferior to this boy. Not that he found it entirely bad, after all, the boy belonged to the Leaf Village and he could be the future once he retired. Moreover, the boy had deep roots with the village, having a quite affectionate relationship with the current Ninetales Jinchuriki. This relieved Hiruzen, knowing that the boy would not betray the village and would die for it if necessary. His student ended up applying a strange punishment to the boy, giving him an entire small camp to take care of. Although it was a great opportunity for the boy to learn and be more prepared for greater responsibilities, he would trust Jiraiya's judgment. Leaving the western reports aside, he opened the northern reports, which were better than the situation in the west. After all, the Raikage was not so active. But he hoped that the White Fang would act when it was important, and maybe he would have to take him out of there if things worsened in the west, since they still dealt with 2 countries and AIM could be a third with Hanzo attacking everyone. He put that thought aside and opened the scroll of the Eastern War, where the situation was worse than in the west, as Kiri dispatched the 7 swordsmen of the mist, along with the 6 tails and 3 tails Jinchuriki, led by the Mizukage himself. Even the Uzumakis and the Konoha ninjas there were starting to feel great pressure with these 4 forces advancing against them. If he did not want to leave his friend Danzo alone, knowing that Danzo would not endure it, Hiruzen needed to act quickly. He issued written orders on a scroll, and an ANBU ninja appeared as he handed over the orders and began to prepare to depart for the east. It wasn't long before Hamura Mitokado and Koharu Udatane appeared in the room. "So you are leaving the village, Hiruzen?" they commented as the Hokage nodded. "Our ninjas need me in the east," he spoke. "We've seen the reports. Don't you think it's imprudent to put a child in charge of adult ninjas?" Udatane said with some dissatisfied tone. "Moreover, this child disobeyed an order. He is gaining too much power. We should keep an eye on this Minato." Mitokado spoke in an advisory tone. "I know he disobeyed his teacher, but I'm not going to apply any punishment to the boy. After all, the boy has been working with all the camp leaders over the last year. There's a specialist Jonin commander at his side all the time, so leave this decision to my student." Hiruzen spoke in a tone that had already decided this and would not listen to their advice. "TSK, alright, now we need to talk about other matters since you're leaving the village." Mitokado spoke. "Yes, Kushina Uzumaki's seal seems to have stabilized after a year since she placed the seal. Now she is safe and the fox trapped in her body," Hiruzen said before he continued. Also, you must place a strong watch over her, at least 3 or 4 full teams on ambush while I am away, understood? He requested, and the two elders nodded as they began to discuss other matters. Meanwhile, in the Land of Wind, a meeting was convened a day after the attack on Konoha's southern camps. The Sand Ninjas were not in a good mood due to this failed attack. Rumors of the attacks in the Stone Country finally began to reach them, surprised that their allies had been attacked by a child and were devastated by it. The rumors about Minato soon began to spread through the enemy camps in the south as well, and they quickly began to identify the boy with the S-rank jutsus and his terrible failed mission, as the ambush squad appeared in the middle of the attack while just one unknown ninja launched a high-scale attack destroying their assets, the carapaces, which would launch poison. Moreover, this ninja still chased them to the end of the border while launching fire jutsus from midair as if he could fly. It all made sense when the boy was mentioned working in the south. We have no choice. A ninja among everyone around a table spoke. A new meeting was beginning at this moment as they needed to increase their strength, even with the war still being won. They did not know if they could continue with such a large variable appearing and growing on the battlefield. We have no choice but to send Shikaku, the man with the Kage hat said, looking at the map on the table in front of him. We failed in our mission to kidnap the daimyo and now we have failed once more. We must summon our bijou. He spoke. A discussion began as soon as the Kazekage spoke while the others thought about it, and a heated debate began. Do we really need this? Another raised the question. After all, summoning Shikaku was a problem as well. We are winning the war, said another. Our poison is still effective, yet, we need to act as quickly as possible to minimize our casualties. Moreover, we have to eliminate that boy. The army leaders agreed as they began to discuss their next actions and strategy against Konoha. In the north, in a very large camp in the mountains, some reports arrived at the Raikage's tent. As he read calmly, 2 children were in front of him, his son, A, and his new partner, training to take on the 8 tails in the future. B, you may leave, he said as the 2 boys exited. He still read the scrolls and reflected on some issues. The Cloud Village had some spies infiltrated in the Leaf Village over the last year. The information revealed that Konoha's Hokage left the village a week ago. This was a great opportunity, as after the death of Mito Uzumaki, the Kyuubi was transferred to another person. He believed it was to the only other Uzumaki in the village, due to the obvious security found in it while keeping her isolated. Wanting to get his hands on that asset, he summoned some ANBU teams to enter Konoha and kidnap the young Uzumaki. He immediately called some ninjas from the camp. Convene a meeting. We need to create a distraction at the border while I want a group passing unnoticed by the sentinels of Konoha, he demanded, and the men quickly began to move. In the Land of Rain itself, a family lived hidden while all other civilians had left the place, fleeing from the war. In a room, a boy looked out the window of the living room. Mom, won't the bad men go away? I'm hungry. The little boy with red hair and a huge fringe covering his eyes asked. The woman who heard this, one who shared the same hair color, approached him, stroking his head. Don't worry about that, soon, we're leaving here. Also, son, she tried to calm him, but there was uncertainty in her tone. A new person emerged in the room, a man. Here, this was all I could find. He approached with some canned food, handing them to his wife and son while they maintained a small candle lit, so faint it hardly seemed like a light. They ate in peace while staying silent. It had been many days since they could eat properly, so the little boy devoured all the food. We can't stay here any longer. We'll leave soon, the man said, as his wife looked at him, agreeing, and the boy was still lost scraping up everything he could eat. This house looks pretty intact, maybe there's something left to eat in there. Suddenly, voices were heard from outside. Hide. The man whispered to his family and immediately extinguished the candle with a quick motion, slightly burning his hand, but unnoticed by the intruders. They saw them hide in the living room, while the strange men entered straight into the kitchen. The man prepared himself with a piece of wood, close to his wife, and asked his family to keep silent. Quiet, let's stay quiet until they leave, he whispered, and his family nodded. 2 ninjas entered and began to search everything in the kitchen. There's nothing here. Another house with nothing to eat, the ninja complained. They remained hidden for a while, until the little boy with red hair, who had been keeping quiet holding his canned food, dropped it, making a sound that could be heard on that side. Immediately, the two ninjas in the other room looked in that direction. "Is someone there?" they said as they drew kunais. Nagato's father, seeing this, rushed forward. "Run! You, get out of here," he exclaimed to his family. "Enemy attack," one of the ninjas shouted. Nagato's mother, desperate, looked at her son. "Nagato, get out of here now," she exclaimed, advancing to help her husband, hoping her son would flee. But Nagato was paralyzed. Despite hearing his parents' orders to flee through the room's door, he just froze in fear, then saw his father and mother fall dead the next moment, going into further shock. His breathing became irregular seeing the fallen bodies as they bled, with his eyes filling with tears. The ninjas stopped to see who was attacking them but were surprised that they were just civilians with a boy. "Hey, they're civilians," one of the ninjas exclaimed. "We didn't know there were civilians here." "This is a war zone," another ninja responded, as Nagato trembled with fear and anger. "Kid, I'm sorry." The ninja tried to approach Nagato. The next moment, his eyes appeared with the fringe lifting, revealing the legendary Rinnegan. "Aichishishishishishh," he screamed, his rage exploding. The only thing he saw was the village headband and then he lost consciousness the next moment, falling to the ground. The entire house shook for a moment and everything went silent a moment later, except for a light rain that continued outside. In the middle of the room, a white and black creature emerged on the wooden wall. "It looks like it worked." This Uzumaki boy managed to use a fraction of the power of Madara's Rinnegan, the white Setsu spoke excitedly. "Yes, it looks like it worked. In the end, we should report to Madara what happened, while leaving some other Zetsus to watch over the boy so he doesn't die or lose the Rinnegan," the black Zetsu spoke. "After that, we should also go to Konoha, right?" the white part spoke. "Yes, we need to start looking for a suitable Uchiha heir for Madara, to continue the plan once he dies," the black Zetsu said. "Then, let's go back," the white Zetsu spoke excitedly and the creature disappeared. The little boy woke up a moment later, with a severe headache not understanding what had happened with his blurred memories. But he saw his parents next to him, dead with their throats cut. This immediately made him wonder if it was a nightmare, with him now being alone, in the middle of a country filled with suffering and war. Chapter 134, Commander Minato. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. At this moment, some Leaf ninjas were on a reconnaissance mission in the Rain Country. They were collecting information from a route they had been monitoring for the last few weeks, while Stone ninjas were passing supplies and information to Sand ninjas without being caught by Konoha and AIM ninjas. The Yambu teams had already been investigating this breach and had reported this information more than a month ago, even before the attack at the northern camp. Jiraiya's espionage camp, under his command, received the mission to stay there studying the route. During this time, they tried to find a pattern to send an elimination team. They were observing and monitoring the patterns of the ninjas who followed this route. However, at a moment close to finalizing it and finishing everything they discovered on the final scroll, they were surprised by Stone ninjas who detected them through their sensors last week. "We should run," exclaimed a village ninja. "Quick, get out of here and take the scroll." Another spoke trying to hold back, but there were at least 40 ninjas against 20 from Konoha, and the result of the fight was disastrous for Konoha. Some ninjas stayed behind while the rest were fleeing through the forest towards the border, but quickly the Stone ninjas were quite persistent in eliminating them. "They won't stop chasing us. We should split up," one of the ninjas said as they dodged kunais and earth jutsus for the rest of the journey. "We need to call for reinforcements. Some will go to AIM, and others will try to warn the outpost at the border," he spoke as they continued through the forest. Nodding, they split into two groups, while the larger one was with the scroll with the information, another was heading to the border. "The scroll is with the left group, isn't it?" a Stone ninja spoke. "Yes," his sensor advised. "Very well, just a small group in the second group, while we go after the collected information," he advised, and the groups began to separate. The second group continued advancing while they were attacked increasingly as they approached the Fire Country. One of the group was hit at this moment as he fell with a kunai in his neck. "This is bad. We should leave someone to go back to the border while we handle them to buy time, one of the jonin spoke. Nuwa, you go? He spoke to the youngest of the group, being just a chunin, while the boy looked frightened. But the young man tried to argue. Shut up and just do it. We'll stay to buy time, the jonin spoke determinedly while Nuwa, despite being frustrated, headed for the border while the others sacrificed themselves, began to advance against the stone ninjas, surprising them while they blew up their own bodies to stop the enemy, while they were caught by those ninjas activating the paper bomb to destroy them. The surviving ninja shed some tears with the explosion, but without choice, he continued forward, approaching the outpost, arriving tired after several days of fleeing. What are you doing here? Ninjas approached him the next moment as they stared at him with red eyes from so much crying. We were attacked. Many of my companions are being pursued by the Rain Country at this moment. They have the scroll with all the information we collected. We urgently need to rescue them. The young man pleaded. The ninjas were surprised by this and understood the situation immediately. I'll inform the camp commander, one of them said, and quickly went to the main tent, where a blonde-haired boy was sitting in the main chair, and by his side, there was a man with black hair and a small mustache. This young boy of only 12 years old was Commander Minato, who had come here a few days ago to take over the camp. Commander Minato, the jonin approached while Minato stopped writing and looked at him with a questioning look. It was strange to see a child in charge of a camp, although he was not one of the main ones, but rather a godson of the north. Everyone there had to obey the orders of the boy. However, Minato had earned a great reputation as one of the most powerful ninjas of this war. While he alone fought against two enemy camps, a Jinchuriki, and Hanzo himself, Minato had little difficulty in making his men obey him. Minato listened to the man and took his eyes off the scroll. He saw him and quickly scanned the scroll with his haki to see what had happened until he found a chunin in tears being comforted by other ninjas. Yes, what happened? Minato asked. The ninja began to speak while Minato listened to everything. I understand. Summon this ninja immediately, he requested. Minato watched the ninja leave his tent, while he glanced at the Nara beside him. He had been leading the camp for 2 weeks, handling all the bureaucratic and strategic work, trying to minimize losses as much as possible. He tried not to let anyone die, but that was impossible in the midst of war. His job was to ensure there was no lack of resources and to prepare paths and reports for ninjas on missions about the situation in AIM. He also had to report daily to the camp in charge of this outpost, which was led by Jiraiya himself. He received orders from his sensei to allocate patrols and received daily reports on enemy movements as the patrols continued near the border. But Minato also had to deal with constant attacks from the stone ninjas, as the situation had become much more aggressive than before, with enemies seeking revenge for what he had done at the camps. There were rumors that the Tsuchikage himself was at the border, something he should be wary of, as he could be attacked by that old flying man at any moment. Minato wanted to hear his advisor's opinion, but at that moment, the chunin who had fled arrived at the tent, looking terrified, and began to recount all the details of the mission. Minato listened attentively, placing his hand on his chin. All right, let's see how to handle this. You can leave now and rest. Take the rest of the day off, Minato said. The boy, who must have been between 17 and 18 years old, nodded and left. Did you save them? He couldn't leave without wondering. Yes, don't worry, Minato spoke. What do you plan to do, kid? Vini Nara, the name of the man working as his advisor, asked curiously. He was a quite capable and intelligent commander, having led some small outposts among the main 12. He had been a key part of helping Minato learn to manage this camp at the beginning. Although Minato had already worked as an assistant to various commanders, leading his own camp was quite different. After all, you are responsible for all the lives in it, and bureaucracy became somewhat insignificant with this. Vini Nara always warned Minato if he made a mistake or how he could improve on each of his decisions. After all, Minato wasn't born knowing everything. But he was learning at a satisfactory speed. Isn't it obvious? There are Konoha ninjas who need us. I will lead some teams, Minato spoke. Are you sure about this? Vini asked, and Minato nodded. There's no time to be wondering what we should do or to ask for permission from Jiraiya-sensei. I will be going to help. I would like you to stay in command, seeing that there's no time to ask for more reinforcements, he said determinedly. All right. Vini nodded, seeing that the best option was for them to go help quickly. A mobilization was made while Minato gathered 3 teams with 36 ninjas, leaving some ninjas at the border while sending a report to Jiraiya-sensei about what was happening. It was an emergency, and he could not afford to wait, asking for reinforcements while ninjas might be killed at this moment. He gathered everyone and went up to a small platform in the camp, starting with a speech for all of them. Our mission is very simple, he began, getting used to dealing with an increasingly large audience. We need to rescue our comrades who are trapped in the land of rain. Moreover, they have information from an important mission. Let's focus all our efforts on rescuing our comrades and bringing them back in the best possible way, understood, he requested. Immediately, everyone nodded. Yes, a chorus of voices spoke, and Minato nodded, satisfied with this. Let's go then. Let's not waste any more time. Minato exclaimed, and they headed for the land of rain, while Minato no longer wore his Umbu uniform, but rather a Jounin outfit. Although he did not officially have that rank, as he was still a Chunin, he was still the leader of that camp and wore that uniform. I want everyone to follow me, Minato said. Let's avoid any unnecessary confrontation and follow a safer route. Minato spoke as he advanced at high speed, encountering no enemies, avoiding any patrols from AIM and the stone ninjas, thanks to his haki. Meanwhile, over the next few days, the Konoha ninjas were having a tough time, hiding from their pursuers and having to change locations from time to time due to the sensors. At this moment, they were locked in a cave with only one exit. They kept silent as the enemy ninjas roamed the area looking for them. Are we going to survive this? Isn't it better to draw their attention so one of us can get to the fire border with the scroll? One of them asked logically. Maybe, but trust that they've reached the border. Konoha must be sending reinforcements to rescue us. Another replied. I hope you're right, because I don't think we'll last much longer like this. We've already lost half the group escaping in the past few days. A third murmured sadly. It was then that explosions started erupting outside, initiating an intense battle. What's happening? One of the ninjas asked, alarmed. I don't know, but we better be careful. It could be reinforcements or AIM ninjas. So be ready, we should stay hidden and wait to see what happens. Another responded, while everyone stayed alert to the fight outside. After a while, silence fell over the area again. They waited nervously for any sign of help. Until they heard a voice. You, come out of that cave. We are Konoha ninjas, we're here to help you. They heard inside with relief at these words, finally coming out of the cave. It's so good to see you, they said, relieved. Seeing an adult Jounin in front of several Konoha ninjas, they smiled as they saw their rescued comrades. It was at this moment that Minato arrived at the scene. Commander, is the area secure? The Jounin asked. Yes, I just eliminated the last ones who were trying to call for reinforcements, but it doesn't matter now. Let's return to the border, Minato ordered, and everyone nodded as they headed back to the border, providing assistance to the ninjas who had spent days in dire conditions. A few days later, the border finally lay before them, and they returned to the camp without encountering any ninjas, looking at Minato with appreciative eyes for his incredible sensory technique that allowed them to pass by ninjas undetected from miles away. I'm back, Minato greeted Vini. Welcome back, Commander Minato, he said with a small smile. Now let's go to my tent, we need to write the mission reports. Minato ordered as they entered the tent, with Minato informing his sensei of everything that happened on this small mission. Raccoon here, this was a small chapter to show a bit of Minato commanding the camp. Now, I'll spend a few months with him in this role before new events begin to unfold. Chapter 135, Suchikage of Iwagakure. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. 6 months had passed since Minato had taken up his command position at the outpost. He had been doing a very good job and was improving a lot as he carried out rescue missions and provided support for missions in the Land of Rain. He hadn't encountered any powerful adversaries like Hanzo or a Jinchuriki from the Stone Village, but he knew it wouldn't be long before it happened, not when Owanoki himself was on the battlefield, as reported by the ambush spies with this important information. The war still leaned towards the enemy side as Konoha continued to suffer more casualties than usual. Tsunade was still trying to implement her project of having a medical ninja for each team. Tsunade even went to Konoha again, demanding a meeting with the elders. Once again, she had found a cure for other poisons created by the Sand Village, but they were experts at creating many more, and a worse one had emerged. While Tsunade found a way to prolong it to try to cure the victim. It was still almost impossible to find a cure. The pressure on the Hokage was increasing with the various casualties happening on the battlefield, especially as Shikaku began to appear in the southern field, and the north was just silent, but that wouldn't last now that they had two Jinchuriki and their Hokage on the battlefield. Minato was getting very good at commanding a camp even with his young age, and the ninjas respected him for his strength. But his name wasn't just present in the north, even though he was no longer active in the south, people still talked about him. Makoto was on a logistics mission when she arrived at the central camp, approaching the current leader without Tsunade in command at the moment. She approached the main tent when she saw someone familiar she hadn't seen for over a year. Makoto? The person was surprised by the girl in front of her. Suna. Makoto also said, surprised. Both didn't even call each other by their last names while maintaining a calm and nostalgic look. How are you? I've heard a lot about Minato, he's quite famous now in the camps. She commented. I'm doing well, getting stronger. She spoke while her control over lightning wasn't far from beginning to perform her first jutsus. About Minato, yes, he's done a lot of things in recent months and has been commanding a small camp on the border, taking good care of things. It won't be long before he becomes someone important, and you, how are you? Makoto spoke with a bit of caution. After all, she had a kind of rivalry with the girl but was also happy to see her, even though she didn't want to show it. Yes, he's already one of the main names in this war, and is gaining a reputation as a competent leader. I wanted to see him. Suna couldn't help but murmur. After all, her last conversation with Minato had been a long time ago when she had acted like a child out of jealousy over him with Kushina, which she regretted a lot. I'm well. I'm learning a lot in the last year. My mother won't let me stop training my control and studying all kinds of medical knowledge. She's in Konoha trying to put her project into execution. She believes it will change the course of the war. Suna said. Makoto nodded. I hope she succeeds. After all, things are not easy in the north and the pressure on Minato is quite large. Makoto murmured. Yes, she will succeed, she always does. Suna spoke regarding her mother, trusting her. Anyway, it's good to see you, Suna. I hope you stay well. Now I'll deliver the scroll to the person in charge of the camp, Makoto said. Okay, goodbye, Makoto. Suna gave a small smile as they both walked away. There was no longer that childish rivalry between them, as if they had finally matured as they moved away from each other, but as comrades of Konoha. While Makoto had been received by the woman standing in for Tsunade, Suna went to the main tent where the main victims of the new poison were being treated. She was already accustomed to the horrific scene in front of her with dozens of people bedridden, screaming in agony, as medical ninjas rushed back and forth. Many of the patients were kept in belts so they wouldn't contaminate others. Suna had learned to treat them without all the fear she used to feel, thanks to her mother, as she quickly entered and went to help the other nurses. How are things? She immediately asked. We need some help here, Suna, said one of the busy medics, and Suna approached to assist, helping here and there. We need someone in the new poison section. Someone requested. Leave it to me. Suna said as she approached the more secluded area in the tent, closed off by curtains, where the worst cases of the new poison were being kept. She entered the area, where she saw dozens of people with red blotches all over their bodies. Their veins were also visible on their skin, turning a sinister red as the poison spread through their blood. There were numerous people screaming in agony as they tried to thrash about to relieve the pain, another scene of terror. Suna just sighed, already accustomed to this, as she approached the sheets on the stretcher and quickly began reading the reports. This poison is more dangerous than all the others, she murmured as she read, and it's highly contagious. If an infected person touched another, the bacteria would quickly transfer to other organisms? This was one of the main reasons her mother had gone to Konoha. Things were getting dangerous, and if they didn't retaliate in a better way, Konoha would suffer a great loss with this type of poison from the enemy. Suna knew she had to be very careful and avoid touching anyone without gloves, so she began putting them on while people were picking up beds and sheets from the section to burn them immediately, removing some bodies that had died. There were other medics in the area also doing the report as she continued reading them to write reports that her mother would read to assess her performance. She still wasn't good enough to try to find a cure, but she certainly helped Tsunade in many things. "Help me, please, help me, I don't want to die." Suddenly someone started screaming there. Despite the sad scene, Tsunade continued writing her report, while other medics went to care for him, holding him with gloves. "Hey, give me a tranquilizer," one of the medics shouted as another went to get a syringe. "Put this dose in this man," she said as she approached and inserted the needle into the patient before discharging the liquid inside him. The man seemed to calm down after that. "This is the 6th time we're using tranquilizer on him, he seems to be developing resistance to it." One of the medics spoke with a furrowed brow. That was true. The man began to gain resistance, and the next moment, his eyes opened before completely closing. He quickly managed to reach a scalpel beside the distracted medic and cut the belts quickly. "He's getting up," the medic exclaimed before being struck along with another, and the man with numerous veins on his body in immense pain began to advance. "Suna!" The medic immediately exclaimed to the girl who was distracted writing when she looked up and saw the infected man on top of her. "Help me! Please!" she exclaimed, grabbing her arm, which made Suna drop her pen and paper, screaming in pain. "Someone! Help here!" another medic exclaimed as security ninjas entered the area and cut the throat of the man while Suna fell backwards with her arm burning, as it began to turn red. After all, she was only wearing a glove, while her forearm was exposed and the infected touched her there. "We need help here. 2 people are infected." The ninja immediately shouted. In addition to Tsuna, another medic was also touched by the man as he touched her skin. Suna looked frightened at her arm as she felt an intense burning. "Hey, are you guys okay?" New people entered the section as Suna and another medic screaming in pain were infected. The girl had never thought she would feel something like this. She began to lose consciousness with the intense pain as several people started to approach her. Meanwhile, another urgent situation was happening in the north, with a summons from Minato to his sensei, due to a ninja arriving injured, as he was left to return alive while the rest of his team was captured on a field mission. "This is bad," Minato murmured as he waited for his sensei to arrive in the next few hours to take the lead on what should be done. The Stone Village ninjas were demanding negotiations for the lives of the Konoha comrades, and Minato knew this was likely a trap. It didn't take long for Jiraiya to arrive with 3 ninja teams from the north as he entered the main tent with Minato and his assistant Nara standing behind the desk. "Good to see you again, kid," Jiraiya commented, seeing his student after a few months. After all, Minato had been taking good care of the place for him to need to come here. "It's good to see you too, sensei. How are things?" Minato asked. "Fine, but let's talk about the situation now," he requested, and Minato nodded. "I'll go to the place where they want to negotiate, but I want you to accompany me. Gather your team and let's see what those damned want," Jiraiya spoke while Minato nodded. "You take care of the camp," Minato told Nara, who nodded. "The sand and stone villages have been causing you a lot of trouble lately, but now the situation is quite complicated," Jiraiya spoke as they left the tent. "They'll probably have the Tsuchikage himself involved." He spoke as Minato nodded. "Maybe even their 2 Jinchurikis," Minato murmured, and Jiraiya agreed with him. Minato quickly gathered his team, which he usually took with him on any field mission. After all, he had to do many rescues in recent months, and prepared them along with the 3 teams of Jiraiya, and one more Ambu team was dispatched as they finally entered the Land of Rain, approaching after 2 days at the negotiation site near the northern border. "Kid, be careful. They'll surely use a chance to take revenge on you, and if Owanoki is involved, you have to be doubly careful. Therefore, place as many seals with your Raijin in the locations," he requested. Yes, and I also want all of you to have my kunais, Minato said, distributing a series of seals to the entire team of Jiraiya and Anbu, while his team already had their own, since he had already done many missions together. It was after a while that they arrived at the site, in an open and rocky area, while it rained heavily on that day. There were several stone village ninjas all over the place, at least about 100 of them waiting. In front of them, there were several Konoha ninjas placed on rocks, tied up while still being kept alive, surrounded by other enemy ninjas. As soon as they reached the distance, they saw the scene while waiting for Jiraiya, who frowned, acting as the mission leader. You finally arrived. Before anyone else could speak, a man flying above everyone looked with interest at the group from Konoha, while Minato looked with interest and saw for the first time that Tsuchikage from the Stone Village. Chapter 136, Fighting with Inoki. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. The Konoha ninjas looked cautiously at the stone ninjas as both groups faced each other in a tense atmosphere. The Konoha ninjas still remembered the attack on their camp, with many of them present on the day of the attack. The stone ninjas hated Konoha for Minato's counterattack months ago. Jiraiya frowned for a moment when he saw Owanoki, who was glaring at them while floating above the boulder. Owanoki analyzed the group until his gaze fell on the blonde-haired boy among them. Meanwhile, Minato felt Owanoki's gaze analyzing him for the first time. He was internally debating a way to get past them and free the trapped shinobi. The number of enemies amounted to 80, slightly more than the shinobi from the Leaf, with 5 squad teams. It seems you've finally come to rescue your ninjas. Owanoki began to speak. You called us here, so we've come to negotiate. Jiraiya responded, taking a step forward. Our proposal is very simple, Owanoki started, still observing the area. We want some resources from Konoha, and in exchange, we will release your shinobi. You already know what we want. He stated. We brought the resources you requested, but we won't hand over the explosive tags, Jiraiya spoke calmly. After all, there was a demand from the stone ninjas, and they wanted a large number of explosive tags, which would be extremely disadvantageous for them as it could be used as a weapon against them. Of all the villages, Konoha had the most advantage with these explosive tags, thanks to the Uzumaki clan's affinity with Fuinjutsu, allowing them to create a vast quantity. Even Minato contributed a bit, though it was minimal compared to the total amount the Uzumaki clan could produce. That's hard to accept. How about you give us that boy instead of the explosive tags? Owanoki suggested, pointing at Minato. Many of the stone ninjas want him dead. He said while Minato remained calm. Do you think we're going to hand over a Konoha shinobi to you? You must be joking, Jiraiya growled immediately, especially since it was his student. But Tsuchikage was silent for a few seconds before speaking again. Throw a scroll, let me see what's inside. Owanoki demanded. What guarantee do you offer that you'll release the prisoners? Jiraiya asked as the tension between the groups increased. You have no choice but to trust, or watch your shinobi die, Owanoki threatened, while all the Konoha ninjas watched with dark expressions. Jiraiya, with no other choice, threw the scroll. Owanoki quickly caught it and opened it, inspecting the contents. You've given us part of what we asked for, so we'll release part of the shinobi, he said at the end, putting away the scroll and pointing to the prisoners. Only half of them, he added immediately. Half of the Konoha shinobi were freed as the stones that bound them fell to the ground, and they quickly jumped to the Konoha side as soon as they were liberated. You can't demand that, Owanoki. Jiraiya immediately protested, stepping forward toward the middle of the field between the two groups. Owanoki laughed and approached Jiraiya. You destroy several ninjas from my village and think you'll get away with it easily? Do you really think we won't retaliate? He snarled. Name your price. Jiraiya moved closer to Owanoki, who smiled at this. You really think you can fool me? You're actually the boy transformed into Jiraiya, aren't you? Owanoki taunted, noticing the unusual approach, speaking with complete control of the situation. Meanwhile, Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and quickly tried to draw his kunai with the Raijin, but saw the space around him turn white. Minato, behind the Konoha group, transformed into smoke, revealing a disguised Jiraiya. Back in the field created by the dust release, Jiraiya transformed into Minato, trying to attack, but he would have been vaporized. He had no choice but to disappear with the Raijin, while Oanoki saw his attack fail and looked ahead, where Minato was landing. "You're really fast, but you won't last long," Oanoki said with a cold smile and immediately pointed forward as his jutsu stopped shining in the middle of the rain. "Attack the Konoha ninjas," he ordered, while all the ninjas on his side started moving. With the Tsuchikage also acting alongside them, it greatly boosted the morale of the stone ninjas. "Let's go, we have to rescue them." Jiraiya gave the order, and the Konoha shinobi prepared themselves. However, Minato noticed something while standing on a boulder, observing several ninjas starting to perform jutsus. "This is bad, we have to get out of here," Minato exclaimed as the ninjas completed their jutsu, and the entire ground began to crumble. This caught everyone by surprise while they were at a disadvantage, with rocks falling from higher places and even the ground beneath them collapsing, causing several Konoha ninjas to get caught. Minato quickly started throwing kunai toward the enemies, teleporting to confront the ninjas. But as soon as he appeared at the first location, the entire space turned white. Oanoki tried to vaporize Minato quickly, but he disappeared with his high speed, reappearing in another location. He appeared above one of the ninjas, who barely had time to react before being cut down, and attacked the next while touching one's shoulder. However, Oanoki attacked, making him disappear with a line of his power separating Minato from the ninja. "Let's make the golem." Several stone shinobi began to form a jutsu together, transforming the rocky ground into a rising layer until it formed a stone golem, like a huge monster. Jiraiya saw this and quickly bled his hand, exploding into smoke after slamming it onto the ground and summoning Gamabunta. Gamabunta quickly found himself in the middle of the battlefield and charged at the golem after Jiraiya spoke to him. Amid the ninjas fighting each other, Minato ran across the battlefield while Oanoki watched his movements intently. "I have to find a way to eliminate him here, boy," Oanoki murmured, paying no attention to another battle, as his eyes followed only Minato. Seeing this, Minato took the initiative, looking at the man dozens of meters above the ground. He threw a kunai toward Oanoki while performing a jutsu with his hands, multiplying himself in the air. Oanoki once again created his dust release jutsu, vaporizing most of the approaching kunai. The moment his jutsu ended, Oanoki raised an eyebrow, seeing Minato running through the air toward him, using Jeppo. "Should I feel insulted by a brat running at me?" Oanoki mocked, his pride wounded by seeing a child wanting to face him so openly. He quickly launched his dust jutsu in a straight line, but Minato disappeared and reappeared at one of the kunai Oanoki hadn't managed to disintegrate. Minato advanced once again, now close to the Kage, and approached with a kick. Oanoki quickly raised his hand to defend with his forearm but ended up feeling the pressure of Minato's strength and retreated slightly in the air. "What does this boy have? He's very strong," Oanoki thought, somewhat surprised. He recreated his jutsu, and the sky once again lit up with his disintegration ray as a war unfolded below them. The stone giant fought against Gamabunta with Jiraiya on its head, both trying to gain the upper hand. The other shinobi used jutsus against each other, blowing up the ground with fire, earth, and water jutsus. The Konoha shinobi had lost some advantage at the beginning, but the ANBU team accompanying them consisted of elite ninjas. In the air, Minato once again advanced, with an aerial battle unfolding between him and Oanoki. Minato tried to reach him with his marked kunai, while Oanoki used his jutsus, forcing Minato to dodge and teleport to other kunai still in the air. This continued for some time, with aerial and ground battles happening simultaneously. They were near the border of the Land of Stone, and Minato knew that reinforcements would soon arrive as soon as the battle was noticed from a distance, if it hadn't already been due to the bright light standing out in the rainy darkness of the Land of Rain. The Konoha shinobi were still trapped in the rocks, and the Konoha ninjas did everything they could to reach and rescue them. Once again, Minato managed to get close to Oanoki, delivering a punch while Oanoki crossed his arms to defend himself. Minato threw another punch before fully stepping back, but Oanoki grabbed him, despite feeling the pain from the boy's punch. He got what he wanted, and in the next moment, Minato felt Oanoki releasing a jutsu on him. It happened quickly, and he started to feel lighter, almost like a feather. This made Minato quickly leave the area. Anoki, seeing that he had no advantage in a close-quarters fight with Minato due to the boy's strength, used the jutsu to make him light, stripping him of all his strength. Minato wasn't fazed. In fact, he smiled. "Thanks for that, Anoki." "I feel faster," he murmured, as he hadn't yet used his speed techniques. Anoki raised an eyebrow. "What is this boy talking about?" he murmured. Minato didn't respond, and in the next moment, he advanced through the air much faster than before, surprising Anoki. Anoki dodged the first strike but took a kick to the stomach, making him retreat slightly. Although the kick wasn't very strong, it was the first time Anoki had been hit directly. He looked at the boy with a raised eyebrow. That brat wasn't lying, he thought grimly. Seeing that he couldn't wait any longer, Minato looked at the prisoners and prepared. He made several hand signs in the air and released his yang jutsu, unleashing a massive light that flashed in the air, catching Anoki by surprise and temporarily blinding him. "He caught me with that jutsu I saw at the camp," Anoki murmured in surprise. Minato reappeared beside him, kicking his shoulder and making the man retreat a little more. Quickly, Anoki, without an advantage, pointed his hands where Minato should be while his eyes were still closed, and his jutsu began to explode from him, trying to launch attacks in all directions. Minato had to dodge the uncontrolled attacks, while even the shinobi below were getting hit. Minato frowned and looked down, searching for the ninja he had marked on the shoulder, hoping he was still alive. Seeing that they were fighting near where the shinobi were trapped in the rocks, he quickly signaled to the forest. 6 of Minato's clones, observing from a distance, quickly acted. They disappeared and reappeared on the back of the marked shinobi, eliminating him. Minato had placed a seal on the ninja on purpose to use any chance to get close while creating 6 clones without anyone noticing, as they teleported away, waiting for the chance to act. The stone ninjas watched in surprise as they advanced toward the rocks where the prisoners were. As soon as they touched the prisoners, they made them disappear in the next moment. Jiraiya saw this as he finished destroying the stone golem and noticed that Anoki was temporarily blinded. "Retreat now," he ordered, as Minato was already at a safe distance with all the hostages. This made all the Konoha ninjas disappear, and the original Minato also retreated with the other ninjas. The stone ninjas looked on in frustration as their Tsuchikage was still recovering in the air. "That brat, he got me," Anoki couldn't help but murmur, dissatisfied at being made a fool of by a child. "Should we chase after them, Tsuchikage-sama?" a ninja asked his Kage, but Anoki shook his head. "No, I just wanted to see how the boy fights. He really is as described in the reports, and he's extremely difficult to catch." "Now I know who we're dealing with," he spoke calmly, while the others nodded. They had lost more stone ninjas than Konoha ninjas, but there was something more important than resources or the number of people in a war: information. And Anoki had gained some of what he wanted, even if it meant sacrificing some of his men. Now, he had to think about how to defeat that incredibly skilled brat before taking any further action. Chapter 137, Jonin Minato Namikaze. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. "We finally arrived," Jiraiya commented at the front of the group as he approached the outpost, seeing the distance. Jiraiya didn't fail to look over all the ninjas and the 12 rescued, noting that the group was smaller than when they entered with 5 full teams. "It seems we've had some casualties," he sighed as he landed along with all the other ninjas at Konoha's outpost of Camp 12. "It's good to see you again." The Nara, along with other Jonins, came to greet them, since it had been 4 days since they had left. "Yes, we had to be somewhat careful on our way back," Jiraiya said as they had passed through the rain country with some caution while there was not much pursuit, since Anoki had let them leave and there were not many ninjas following them while they only had to deal with AIM patrol until they got here. Minato was no fool. He knew what happened. Anoki had closely watched each of their moves. He studied him the entire time and didn't really take the fight seriously. After all, he had many more jutsus that he could have used, but he stuck only to dust release. Not that Minato was too concerned about it. After all, he had many more secrets than he showed and knew much more about Anoki than that Tsuchikage could imagine. Jiraiya turned back to his men at this moment. "Let's get things organized here for a while. And you, Minato, you will see along with me." The Nara will continue at the camp. He spoke and everyone nodded. They stayed some time, then at midday, they went to the camp, arriving a while later. Minato often came here over the months to deliver some reports personally to his sensei. Minato also ended up seeing the training and evolution of Makoto and Hanabi, and always spent time with them, talking and training. Jiraiya returned to Minato at this moment. Today you are off, you don't need to have any duties unless there's some emergency, but I doubt that will happen. Jiraiya commented. And Minato nodded, stepping out of the group and going to one side after tracking the whole camp with his haki. Arriving at one side of the camp, while Minato found them on one of the sides with various ninjas training, mainly genins who had just arrived at the war. Many children came to the war every year, each time earlier. Something completely wrong with the intention of creating the war. Minato smiled when he saw Hanabi beginning to train, with a bow and arrow at a tree. She started training with it after he tried to encourage her as much as possible in that style of fighting. Her clan wouldn't be happy about it, but he was willing to support and face them if necessary. Hanabi released an arrow and looked surprised at Minato after finding him with her Byakugan activated, even though he was coming from behind her. Minato! She exclaimed. Hello everyone! Minato smiled at Hanabi and Makoto, who approached him at the next moment, as the three of them began to talk. So this is the famous Minato Namikaze. Even on the northern border, your deeds are being talked about. It's quite unbelievable that this boy can fight with the famous Hanzo, the demigod of the ninja world. A man with Sharingan was analyzing Minato at this moment, while he was among the sentinel teams by the forest. Minato even felt the gaze, but was so accustomed to it that he didn't mind while he talked with his companions. This Uchiha had come from the northern border to bring some reports to the western war and pick up some supplies they might have here. He had a team as well, like Jiraiya. He took 3 students from Minato's class and the others. Yes. Another Jonin replied next to the Uchiha along with his team of Chunins. The boy is very famous all along the border, everyone knows him after his deeds. He, even with his young age, manages a camp near the Rain Country and every week brings shinobis when he needs to rescue someone on a mission. He is not only powerful but a great leader. The man said with some pride before continuing. He will be the future of Konoha, that's what everyone here thinks. He said with a small smile, for such a promising young man coming in this generation. I heard he has the power of a Kage already. That's hard to believe, though I can see his chakra reserves are bigger than all of us combined. The Uchiha commented. Nobody ever asked him directly, but he developed his own jutsus and created an S rank, while learning another S from the second Hokage. He can fight against Jinchuriki and Hanzo himself, this after killing hundreds of stone ninjas. It's clear he's on a Kage level, the Jonin spoke. That's hard to believe when we're talking about someone so young. The Uchiha responded cautiously. From a distance, Minato began training with his companions, as he and Makoto started fighting each other, exchanging blows in a taijutsu sparring match. Meanwhile, one of that Uchiha teacher's students, perched atop a tree, watched Minato from a distance and couldn't help but clench his fist at the sight. This was Gurren Uchiha, who had been in the academy with Minato and always thought he was the strongest among all the children. But as soon as Minato began to stand out in the first year, the gap between them only grew, and Gurren was surpassed by other students by the end of the academy, which was extremely frustrating as his hand tightened more and more. Will I always be behind them? He murmured angrily. It was supposed to be him in this position, after all. He was the one who activated his Sharingan at 6 or 7 years old. He should have been the prodigy of the Uchihas in the village, but now his feats were just a shadow of those who everyone already knows for doing S-rank missions, like saving the daimyo in the Fire Country and other war achievements. Besides having a teacher with a huge reputation in Konoha, Minato seemed to have no limit to his evolution, and this caused enormous jealousy in the boy. If Minato knew Gurren's thoughts, he would say that not always learning quickly means that you have great potential. After all, Makoto was better than him when she graduated from the academy. They continued to watch until Minato, despite the impressive fight against Makoto, caught the Uchiha Jonin's interest, as the girl was the daughter of the clan leader. Then Minato finally knocked her down, putting her in a position with him on top, and both ended up in a situation that even Hanabi looked at with a blush. as Minato and Makoto were so close to each other it seemed they were about to kiss. Scratching his head, Minato moved away, laughing awkwardly to try to deflect the embarrassment from almost kissing his companion while Makoto stood up with a flushed face. That? The Uchiha murmured with disapproval, seeing the intimacy they seemed to share, something inappropriate for the daughter of the clan chief. The leader needs to know about this immediately. He stored this information to speak with the clan patriarch. After the fight, Minato was surrounded by other genin at the site wanting to fight with him after hearing so much about him in this war, while he gave some attention to the young genins and made time to train lightning release with Makoto and wind release with Hanabi as he helped her incorporate it into her arrows. At the end of the day, Minato gathered with the two girls and his sensei who accompanied them while they ate something prepared by Minato and talked. "Tomorrow I will call you to the tent. I want you to be ready, understood?" He spoke as the youths nodded, a bit confused. The next day, there was the call from Minato at the tent he set up in the camp while he went to the main tent to see what his sensei wanted with all this mystery. Upon arriving, he found Jiraiya, two other jonins Minato knew for always being involved in important matters, and Makoto and Hanabi with a certificate. "You've become chunins?" Minato asked with a pleasant surprise. Yes, they said, now they could do field missions at this rank and Minato could finally reunite with his team again. "Now it's you," Jiraiya said while Minato looked at him a bit confused. "What do you mean?" Minato asked. "I was already going to do this, since I had obtained approval from the Hokage to promote her to Jonin whenever I wanted. I was going to do it in a few weeks, but I believe that after what happened on this rescue mission, it's more than time for you to reach one of the highest ranks that Konoha could give you." Jiraiya spoke and pointed to some papers on the table. "Chunin, I just promoted you, but as a Jonin, I need written and oral evidence, so these two Jonins accompanied me in your evaluation. You girls can go now." Jiraiya spoke as Makoto and Hanabi left. "Good luck," they said before leaving the tent. "Thank you," he murmured and looked at his sensei. "I'll do it," he said. After all, it was his opportunity to assume leadership of teams, even though it was something he had already been doing. It was much less bureaucratic and he could even have his own team, although that would only happen after the war. There were some sheets on the table with a pen and Minato sat in the chair starting to take the test. Minato answered all the questions in 10 minutes, finding them quite easy since he was involved in command. In addition to helping leaders of camps on the border, he himself led his small one. "That was quick, but nothing surprising when it's you," Jiraiya commented. "Now let's move on to the next test while I correct your test," he said and picked up the papers while the other Jonin began to ask questions. Minato started to hear questions, answer them orally quickly and being quite objective, and after another 10 minutes he finished, achieving full marks on all the tests. There was a skills test, but that was something the boy didn't need. "Congratulations, kid. You are now officially a Jonin of the Leaf Village," Jiraiya smiled proudly handing a scroll to Minato. "Here's your new uniform and everything you need. Moreover," Jiraiya picked up a paper and gave it to Minato. Minato nodded as he stored the scroll and read the paper of his new ninja profile. There was his name next to the photo, with the number of missions he had done, the most done being rank A. It also said the number of ninjas killed and ninjas he rescued with a note from Jiraiya at the end as his sensei. Ninja profile. Name, Minato Namikaze. Age, 12 years. Gender, male. Rank, Jonin. Completed missions. Rank E, 12. Rank D, 5. Rank C, 10. Rank B, 14. Rank A, 15. Rank S, 10. Ninjas killed, 714. Ninjas rescued, 230. Observations. Minato is a young prodigy, exceptionally talented in ninjutsus, taijutsu, and fuinjutsu, as well as in combat tactics. From a young age, he demonstrated extraordinary aptitude for chakra manipulation and spacetime techniques, and developed techniques on his own, even a highly destructive S-rank jutsu, which earned him the rank of Jonin at such a young age. His skill in saving comrades in critical situations and his effectiveness in high-risk missions are notable. His sense of duty in protecting the Leaf Village and the ninjas who are part of it are unquestionable. This boy not only possesses a bright future but is also an example of virtue and courage for all ninjas. It is expected that he will continue to grow and bring honor to his village and his name, for he will put his name in the history of the ninja world. That's what I believe. Chapter 138, I Love You. I always loved you. Third person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. After becoming a Jonin, Minato was relieved from his role as the commander of the outpost while he earned a week off. He then focused on his own training, something he had been theorizing for a long time but hadn't started researching, which was his chakra quantity. He had a large amount, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to develop a way to get more chakra at this time while he did not have Sage Mode. I don't have a Rinnegan or any eye from the Otsutsuki clan. Minato was thinking about the theory of absorbing chakra even though he didn't have good Jujutsu. Minato was in a part of the forest alone while there were several Fuinjutsu scrolls, many of which Mito had given him. He wanted to develop this through Fuinjutsu, which was the best choice in his view. After all, Fuinjutsu was a series of commands, like programming, perfectly combined. He could try. Naruto had such great chakra control that he could combine the sky with each of the people in this world. If I could learn this with some type of Fuinjutsu. Minato murmured, thinking about the scrolls in front of him. If he learned to see the same combination of people, he could combine others' chakra with his own. In the fight between Sasuke and Yoroi in the Chunin exam, the latter had a technique that absorbed chakra, but it was very weak. I should create it on this basis, but much more powerful with Fuinjutsu. He continued thinking about this for hours, trying to combine the first Fuinjutsu symbols, but miserably failing, something that would take some time before achieving his first steps. He still continued until someone appeared by his side. Minato felt a bad premonition and looked at Makoto a bit surprised with her slightly hesitant gaze. It had been 4 days since he had become a Jonin. Is something wrong? Minato asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, but it's better you go to Jiraiya's tent in person. Makoto spoke in Minato without wasting time with the bad feeling and how Makoto was with that gloomy tone. He just created 2 clones. Keep all this and put it in my tent. I'll be going to the sensei's tent. Minato said and left the clones going with Makoto to the camp. As soon as he entered the place, he found Jiraiya with Hanabi. Hanabi looked sad and Jiraiya with a serious tone. What's the problem? Minato asked. There was an incident at the medical camp. Jiraiya murmured before Minato raised an eyebrow to him and his sensei continued. Tsunade's daughter has been infected by the new poison and is now in a coma. He spoke, while Minato practically lost his footing hearing that. We found out today, and I thought you, as her colleagues, should know. Jiraiya said, while Makoto and Hanabi had worried looks. They had heard this before Minato arrived, while he was paralyzed for a time due to the shock of the words he heard. Tsunade is already at the camp. She left Konoha and cancelled all meetings with the elders as soon as she learned of her daughter's condition. Jiraiya completed. Minato stood still for a while before looking at Jiraiya with a serious tone, while Jiraiya sighed. I know what you're thinking. But you should wait for her mother. He hadn't even finished speaking when Minato had already disappeared, using his teleportation jutsu to a Raijin symbol stuck in a tree hidden near the medical camp. Jiraiya, Makoto, Hanabi. The 3 remained silent for a while with Minato no longer there, while Jiraiya returned to his students. I'm going to the medical camp before Minato does something rash, Jiraiya told them, who were still frozen and a bit worried, even more now with Minato disappearing. In the middle of the medical camp, Minato quickly moved through the place, while some recognized him and were surprised by his presence there. With his observation haki, he quickly sensed the presence of Tsunade and Tsuna in one of the tents, the teenager's life energy being corrupted. This immediately frustrated him and weighed heavily on Minato's heart, as he advanced toward the tent. Hey, kid, stop right there. A Chunin on guard duty spotted the boy openly heading their way and tried to stop Minato, but he didn't stop. The Chunin quickly tried to grab him, but Minato easily dodged the man, passing by another guard who also attempted to detain him, entering a place filled with people screaming in pain. Hey, what are you doing? Get out of here! The guards exclaimed as they followed him inside, drawing the attention of the other medics. but Minato didn't stop and continued advancing to the back of the tent. When he finally reached the last part, he found Tsunade with 3 other medics around a 12-13-year-old blonde girl, lying on the bed with one arm corrupted and red, the infected limb kept inside a cylinder. Tsunade looked at Minato with a furrowed brow as he stopped to observe him. "What are you doing here, kid? You shouldn't be here." Tsunade quickly snapped at Minato, but he didn't care. "Sorry, Tsunade-sama, we'll remove him from here." The guards came right after, simply entering the place. And as soon as they tried to pull Minato away, Tsunade raised her hand. "No, he's already here. Let him be." "I'll deal with him," she said, while the guards just nodded before leaving Minato there. Minato continued observing Tsuna's arm, filled with red veins. The girl kept her eyes closed, but moaned in pain the whole time, showing that she felt immense agony, even asleep. "How is she? What is the status of the poison? Is there a solution?" Minato asked, fixing his eyes on Tsunade's. Tsunade sighed and looked at the 3 medics. "You can leave now." "I'll handle the boy," she said, as the medics left the place, passing by Minato and leaving just Minato, Tsunade, and her daughter alone. So, as you can see, she was infected in an accident. As soon as I knew, I came straight to the camp. Her situation is still in the early stages, however, no matter how much I can delay the poison spreading through her body. It still has no cure, and if it reaches her heart. Tsunade's voice was firm at the beginning but began to falter in her last words. Minato understood this and stayed silent. "I can't lose her," Tsunade murmured amid the silence, as tears began to fall from her eyes. She seemed to have kept a serious face the entire time since she learned her daughter had been infected, but now she couldn't hold back the emotions and cried like a mother watching her daughter dying. "I can't lose her," she kept murmuring, as Minato approached her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "That won't happen. She will be saved." "I said exactly that," Minato said firmly. Tsunade wiped her rare tears after letting her true emotions flow. "Yes, I will find the cure," Tsunade spoke with determination. "Can you give me the report on all the poison and tell me when she might wake up?" Minato asked, as Tsunade still wiped her face. "Yes, she will definitely want to talk to you, though the pain is immense for her at this moment. We can still let her have a few minutes while she can endure it. Here is everything about the poison." Tsunade took a clipboard and wouldn't hand it to just anyone, but, in such a weakened moment, she ended up giving all the poison reports to Minato, hoping that somehow, he would make the impossible happen, as he always had been doing in the last years of this war. Minato nodded and left the place, leaving Tsunade alone, knowing she would cry more. He exited the tent, finding someone trying to enter immediately. It was none other than Tsuna's own father. "Take me to my daughter immediately," he exclaimed to the guards, while looking at Minato, a bit surprised to see him with papers in hand. "How is my daughter, Minato? Did you see her?" he asked him. Minato sighed, speaking the truth. "She's not doing well, but you should speak with your wife. She's in there, alone, with your daughter," he said and moved away the next moment. He sat in a secluded spot near the camp and began to read the entire poison report, as the doctors had studied and put all their impressions on it, noting it as extremely contagious, transforming cells into red tones, corrupting them, and that, upon reaching the heart, it was the end for the person. He continued memorizing everything he needed, and in a few hours, he had read the entire report. It was then that he decided to return to the camp, finding Jiraiya there standing at the entrance waiting for him the whole time. He had arrived shortly, coming quickly so that Minato wouldn't do anything similar to what had happened a few months ago in the north. "I know how you feel, kid. The girl has woken up, from what I've heard. Her parents are talking with her, you can see her," Jiraiya said, leaning against a tree with his arms crossed and his eyes closed. Minato nodded and passed by him, entering the tent again, now unimpeded by the guards, as he moved to the place where Tsuna was being kept. Minato found Tsunade crying on Dan's shoulder, while the man looked worried, touching his daughter's forehead with sadness. Meanwhile, Tsuna had her eyes open while she seemed to be struggling against the pain, and looked at her parents in conflict. She turned her gaze back to Minato, who was entering the area, as Dan touched his wife's shoulder. Let's go, leave them alone, Dan said, and Minato approached Tsunade's daughter. Dan and Tsunade left the area while Minato went to the girl's side. Minato, she spoke with a weak tone. He touched her forehead. I'm sorry for not being here to protect you from this, Minato murmured, as if it were his own failure. You're not to blame for this. None of this is your fault. It just hurts a lot, she said with an almost hopeless tone. You will be okay. We will find a way to cure you, Minato said firmly. Minato, I know this disease has no cure. I didn't tell my mother, but I don't think I will get cured, she murmured with a sad tone. No, that won't happen. He insisted, but was cut off by the girl herself. Please stop. I know how long cures for diseases have taken in recent years, I don't have much time. She said while Minato clenched his fist. Suna continued. Maybe this is the last time we will have a moment alone. I just wanted to say a few things before I die, she began to speak with a tearful tone. Minato remained silent this time. Maybe I'll never get to say this to you, but I'm sorry for what happened the last time we spoke, a while ago. I regret it a lot. I didn't want our goodbye to be that way, she murmured. After all, it had been a long time since they had seen each other, since Minato had joined as a special ambu in the Phantom Division and leader of a camp at an outpost. That was nothing. Minato said firmly. No, it was. I shouldn't have been jealous that way about you and Kushina. Actually, there's no one better for you than Kushina, so I hope you take care of her for the rest of your life, she said. Minato fell silent again. I acted that way because I also love you, Minato. I was just jealous. I've always wanted to say that all these years. Maybe it's not the best time, but it might be the only one. I've always loved you, since our last years at the academy, since our first kiss. I wish things were different. She continued to speak, and Minato didn't know what to say. So please, if I can't have you, at least take care of Kushina. She deserves it, otherwise. I'll come back as a ghost. Suna laughed at the end while tears ran down her eyes and her voice faltered. It was at that moment that her arm became redder. Feeling pain, she groaned while gritting her teeth. Minato saw this and his heart felt increasingly heavy. He simply took a special seal and placed it on her forehead to make her fall asleep, making the girl immediately stop feeling pain and fall asleep once again. Minato spent some time looking at the girl, pondering everything he had heard. Unwittingly, as he closed his eyes in anger, Minato released a wave of Conqueror's haki, causing everyone around to be surprised by the wind with yellow lightning streaking through the area, while several nurses fell to the ground. Jiraiya felt it coming from inside the tent, and nearby, Tsunade and Dan looked on in surprise, not understanding what was happening. But Jiraiya knew very well as several people in the camp began to faint immediately. Help wake everyone up. They are just fainting. Jiraiya exclaimed to those who weren't affected by the strange wave, already having experience with it. He immediately entered the infirmary. Minato finally opened his eyes, unaware of the confusion he had just created, and approached Suna's face, giving a kiss on her forehead. I will not let you die. I swear. He said with a firm tone. His gaze fell on his daughter's arm inside a protective cylinder, placed there so that no one would touch it. Minato knew that finding the antidote was impossible before Tsuna's heart was affected, even being a senju unable to last 4 or 5 times longer than an ordinary person. He had to go after that antidote, and he did not know what would happen if he did the same as what happened in the attack in the north. But he did not want to see the scene again as it happened months ago, losing someone he was close to, especially Tsuna, someone with whom he also shared romantic feelings. I will force my way to the land of wind. He finally decided, wanting to search for the poison. Without hesitating, Minato opened the cylinder and touched Tsuna's infected arm, something that would be considered madness, but Minato was determined to do so. He focused, materializing his own arm and struggling to prevent it from turning into light, and let his body be infected. Despite the intense pain he felt as soon as the poison entered, he stood firm. The veins in his hand began to stand out in red tones, running up to his forearm, until finally, he released her arm. The pain was immense, but Minato didn't care. He clenched his fist, took a deep breath, closed the cylinder again, determined to find a cure for the girl even in this state, with no one else able to stop him from going on his own to the land of sand. Jiraiya entered the place at this moment and looked at Minato, his eyes widened seeing that the boy was also infected. "What have you done?" he murmured, stunned by it. "Jiraiya-sensei, I'm going to the southern zone to look for an antidote, after all, I'm also infected." Minato spoke with a firmer tone than he had ever used, leaving Jiraiya shocked by what he was seeing. Minato passed by him, careful not to let his arm touch anything, going to prepare to invade the land of wind. Even if he had to use his powers of light openly and create a massacre, he was willing to do exactly that. Chapter 139, Infiltration 01. Third-person POV. Land of Rain, Year 38. The first thing Minato did was to take a large bandage and wrap it around his arm while finishing covering the entire infested area so as not to touch anyone or even his scrolls. He could still perform jutsu with both hands. After all, the chakra was still flowing with the poison, but it could feed and spread it faster. The pain would be even more immense than what Minato was feeling, but he didn't care anymore as he began to prepare for his trip to Suna. With the poison-consuming chakra, Minato should very well avoid using it. After all, this would make all the side effects be felt. That's why this poison was classified as the most dangerous of all. Besides the cure being far from the hands of Konoha's medics and Tsunade, the ninjas could not even use the body's chakra self-healing, making them simply avoid continuing on the battlefield. But for Minato it was different. After all, he was the only one in this world who could divide his combat strength into chakra as energy, as well as into stamina, being the main fuel to use the 6 styles, strength of his body and fruit. He quickly opened several scrolls at his feet, beginning to check all of them. As he did this outside the medical camp, he felt someone approaching at that moment. "Why do you do this?" came from behind him as Jiraiya approached. "Be honest, sensei, would you let me go if I asked?" Minato asked without looking at Jiraiya while his gaze remained fixed on the scrolls in front of him. Jiraiya just sighed. "No," he answered sincerely. "And even if I did, I couldn't do that. After all, the village was not very pleased with what you did at the northern camp. They certainly wouldn't let you do something so suicidal again and would apply punishments that even I would no longer have control over." He spoke sincerely. "So you understand, Professor. Write in the report that I had no choice. I am doomed to die here, so I will use the rest of the time I can to look for the cure on my own or die trying," Minato declared with a firm tone, while Jiraiya still frowned. "I do not approve of what you are doing at all. Now we might lose you too, but if you are willing to save your friend to the point of putting yourself at death's door, there's no stopping you. Just come back alive, kid," he spoke, since what more could he do? He could only wish his student good luck. Minato nodded at Jiraiya's words and continued to check all his scrolls with paper bombs and all tools like his special kunais and others. After doing his inventory, to calculate everything he would use on this mission, he began to put everything away. Minato returned to Jiraiya who was finishing writing on a scroll, before finishing and tossing it to Minato. "This is the mission I just made in my name. With it, you'll pass through the southern outpost. Just come back alive, as I said." Jiraiya spoke with serious eyes. "Thank you, sensei." Minato nodded, storing the scroll as well. "I'm heading to Suna, goodbye," Minato declared and disappeared at that moment without a proper farewell, while Jiraiya just looked where Minato had disappeared and returned to the medical camp, since he had a long report to write. To the south, Minato reappeared in the camp at the extreme south, where he had helped and found Suna's invasion months ago. He was already out of the camp and simply moved westward towards the extreme point of the border. He no longer had any Raijin points in the rain country. It seems that all he had placed were destroyed or even erased by the constant rain of the country. His presence was soon noticed by the sentries, but he did not stop advancing quickly while his arm was bandaged. He finally saw the outpost in front of him, as he approached to deliver Jiraiya's scroll, landing at the entrance of the place, while some ninjas were going to receive them, despite not knowing who the blonde was, as Minato could be famous, but only by name, since he rarely appeared in the south. "Identify yourself, boy, and why you are here," the Jonin quickly asked, looking at the young boy, despite being surprised with the Jonin vest he was wearing. "I am Minato was approaching with the scroll when someone interrupted him. Minato! The voice emerged as someone approached them with a pleased look, seeing Minato there. Minato looked and saw Fury Akimichi, someone who was his companion in the Phantom Squad with the codename Echo, after months with him having to leave the group to take over a camp in the north. Even though Minato maintained a serious look, this person seemed very excited. Long time, man. I heard you were taking over a northern outpost. Congratulations, kid. It's a shame we haven't seen each other more, and everyone in the group misses our mascot. You were greatly missed on the missions. He continued to approach while speaking cheerfully, but noticed Minato's serious look and looked confused, seeing that the boy did not seem to be in the good mood he was always accustomed to. Any problem, Minato? He asked cautiously. Not too much, just heading to Suna. Minato declared, making everyone in the place immediately look surprised at the boy. What do you mean by that? The Jonin who had approached him first asked, narrowing his eyes while Fury was stunned by it. He would simply deliver the sensei's scroll, but with Fury, he knew the man wouldn't let him leave without a good explanation, so he removed some of the cloth from his bandaged arm, showing the red lines running through it. This. Everyone was shocked, especially his old companion. How did this happen, Minato? He practically demanded. After all, the Phantom Squad continued with high-level infiltration missions and were the first to try to find the cure for the poison, so they knew how this new poison was more deadly than any other. It doesn't matter now. Minato simply spoke while putting the cloth back on the affected skin. Anyway, Jiraiya-sensei, my commander authorized me to go to Suna. He took the scroll and threw it at the ninja, who opened it and read, looking surprised. You are that Minato, but why undertake such a suicidal mission, allow you to go alone like this? The Jonin refused to believe what he was reading. You can't be serious. You really are going into the Wind Country alone? Fury said in an incredulous tone. Let the boy pass. A new voice emerged as the leader of this outpost approached after all this commotion began attracting the attention of the entire camp. He heard what was happening and recognized Minato immediately. This boy saved the southern camp in the attack. If he was authorized to go to Suna alone, let him go. This ninja spoke. The Jonin who approached Minato before, with no choice, nodded, while making space for Minato to pass and handing over Jiraiya's scroll for the superior to read. Well. I can't authorize any team to accompany you, but if you want, I can convince my superiors to accompany you if you wish, but it will take time. He spoke to Minato after seeing the scroll. Thank you, but I don't have time. Minato spoke. After all, he didn't even want to wait for that from Jiraiya. That's why he got infected to be as fast as possible to save Tsuna. I don't know how this happened, but you are visibly infected. Since you wish to undertake this mission alone, go. But stay alive. We will send forces as soon as we can. Since the Leaf Village cannot lose you. I wish you good luck. He spoke as Minato nodded, beginning to walk away. Wait, Minato. This is madness. Fury exclaimed, trying to stop him. Fury, I'm infected with something incurable. My only choice is to go alone to Suna. Don't worry. I'll come back alive. Minato spoke. He just remained silent as Minato decided to continue while advancing to the Rain Country, starting to gain altitude, beginning to fly through the sky. Unnoticed, Minato continued passing by Konoha ninjas on missions, patrols from AIM and Suna as he continued advancing south. He passed through the enemy outpost camp and entered the desert alone. Here it was very difficult to pass unnoticed, due to the lack of trees where he could hide. At least you should have an affinity with the earth to use mole-style jutsus to open a passage to get past the desert patrols, but Minato could fly, so he quickly passed, but taking care not to have his shadow seen with the sunlight against it, even using his light body so his shadow wouldn't appear on the desert sand. It had been hours since he had left the Konoha camp. While continuing to travel, he passed through the desert until he began to see the camp as the Konoha system, seeing some at a distance from the height he was at. The camp that was furthest to the east of this border was gigantic, housing at least the amount that 6 Konoha camps would, which was understandable. After all, Suna was at war with Konoha, so their forces were concentrated at this point, while there were more defenses along the border, but much less than what he was seeing. First, I need to get into that place. Minato murmured, realizing he would need to study the place before actually entering it and searching for what he was seeking. The place was fully fortified while the ninjas surrounded it and a wall of sand had been built around. Minato approached until he took a kunai out of his pocket and threw it into a part of the camp without anyone noticing. Meanwhile, some Suna ninjas walked around the area. "I'm going to rest a bit. See you tomorrow, Iraq." One of the ninjas, wearing clothes over his face to protect from the sun, said to his companion who was dressed the same. The latter was a quieter person with few words and just nodded to his companion while heading to his tent after staying up all night working. As soon as the man entered the place, he noticed a bizarre scene, as he found something he did not expect to see here, a frog standing in the middle of his carpet with a calm look. A red frog. How did it end up here? The ninja named Iruk murmured in disbelief. However, he was even more surprised when the frog simply opened its mouth and sent its tongue at the man without being able to react or even scream. After all, his body was pulled towards the small frog which simply swallowed him, despite being disproportionate in size with such ease. The frog was silent the next moment, before it simply opened its mouth once more and a Minato wearing Iruk's clothes emerged with the Suna headband on his forehead. Well, infiltration was successful. Now let's begin. Minato declared. He did not transform into the ninja because he knew that would activate his poison, so he just stayed as Minato, hiding his face with the Suna clothes. Then he began to leave the tent. First using it to study and learn about the camp which should have at least 6,000 or 7,000 people around it. Dressed as a Suna, Minato walked through the camp while disappearing into the crowd running from one side to the other. Chapter 140 Infiltration 02. Third-person POV. Land of Sand, Year 38. Minato, now disguised as a ninja from Suna, moved quietly through the camp as there was a flow of people here and there, each engaged in their own business as they continued walking to their destinations. Minato quickly joined a group of ninjas walking by, while carefully surveying the area without showing curious eyes. After all, someone could easily notice this as he continued to look around to see how the camp operated. "Will you be on watch tonight?" asked one of the ninjas walking alongside Minato. "Yes, we'll be in the desert all night," another responded. As he continued moving through this group, through the camp, he kept monitoring the entire place to see how it functioned. "That is the..." Minato was surprised as he looked at a highly guarded tent with over 20 ninjas around it, his haki unnoticed by the ninjas, as he scanned the area and spotted an old man, bound in Fuinjutsu lines. "So this is the Shikaku's Jinchuriki. If he is here, these guys plan to use him soon." Minato thought as he looked at the rest of the site. He tried to look for Chio, but she wasn't here, or he didn't know how to find her. After all, he had only seen her when she was old, and at this time, she should be middle-aged. He soon separated from the group as they headed for the mess hall, since he did not plan to go there, and went to one side of the camp, walking quietly and making sure no one noticed him amidst thousands of enemies around him. Minato hadn't spent the last years just fighting or taking care of the camp. Jiraiya-sensei had taught him a lot about espionage techniques at the camp, most specialized in it throughout the war. Despite this, Minato never needed them until this moment, due to his direct attack missions except for a few in the Phantom Division. Then he quickly started mingling with a crowd of a group of ninjas without them noticing his suspicious approach, while calculating his trajectory. "You finally arrived. Now get to work." A man who would be a jonin wearing the official uniform of Suna spoke to the group with a stern tone. "Let's go, before the boss punishes us," spoke the Kiri ninjas in a tired tone. "Yes. I want to rest as soon as I can," another also complained. Minato continued following the group as they joined other Suna ninjas sitting at the site, creating some seals on the ground. While all those with Minato sat down on the ground, he stopped to watch some of the other ninjas making the seal. It was an intermediate seal, while he easily memorized it perfectly and the flow of chakra applied to it through his senses, compiling and capturing perfectly how to do it just by looking. "Hey, what are you doing? Sit down and start making the seals." The jonin saw Minato the only one standing and he nodded. Sitting in his spot, he began making the seal, picking up the chakra ink with his brush in the middle of the camp while the sun beat down on them, but protected by the clothes. This group continued making several seals, while Minato had some difficulty. After all, with the use of chakra in the ink, he could feel his area affected with the poison at tremendous pain. But with gritted teeth and avoiding exposing his pained face, he maintained the same flow of time as them. Even though he could be more than 50 times faster in Fuinjutsu, he couldn't draw attention by his speed or pain felt, much less help the enemy village. The leaders continued watching them to see if they were doing the work right while talking with other Jonin colleagues. This team was a group of Chunin with some knowledge of Fuinjutsu, but not much. It was after hours of continuous work that they were called by the leader once again. "Hey, you guys, finish this quickly. It's time for us to go put this on the puppets," one of the ninjas said. "Well, folks, let's go," another ninja called them as everyone began to get up following him to another place, which was a kind of giant shed, as everyone entered with the seals made. Minato looked around the place and, as he sensed with his observation haki, faced countless types of puppets being constructed on the site, at least thousands of models under construction, with many Suna ninjas working to assemble them and create their parts from wood. A puppet factory. "I never expected to see this in this war," Minato murmured as he continued among the Suna ninjas. "Now that you are here, let's start putting the seals on them to bind them." Another Jonin approached as he began to lead the group. The group started to disperse with their seals. This Fuinjutsu was a binding seal, something that kept one part attached to another, used by the sand village to keep the puppets' parts connected in high-intensity battles. As Minato moved to one, he glanced at various models around the place. There were all types with animal or humanoid shapes, constructed from wood, and even models that Minato had destroyed when they attacked. Seeing the huge shell in a corner, the one that sprayed poison at the south camp and only a raisin shuriken to completely destroy it. He sighed and began to focus as he studied them, observing how the other Suna ninjas did it, beginning to practice. As before, any mistake or something extraordinary could attract attention, so he followed the pace of his colleagues on this free puppet. He continued placing seals between the joints and on the fixing of parts of this puppet while studying its body with interest. There were blades hidden all along the arms to be released in a fight, as he had seen on the battlefield. His gaze fell on something at this site, while there were also large cylinders with red liquids next to the tent, which possibly were the poison that would be placed inside the puppets to attack enemy ninjas more lethally. Occasionally someone took some of the liquid and went to one of the puppets, storing it inside tubes within the weapon itself. Other ninjas were storing a large number of throwing blades like kunais and others, using devices that would make the puppets launch them. More sophisticated puppets had storage seals inside them, able to store infinite things. His gaze fell on a scroll of the structural design of the puppet he was working on. Minato understood much more than he had seen on the battlefield. In the end, as soon as the puppet was ready, it was taken to some ninjas in a corner of the tent while studying it to see if there was any defect in it. If it was 100% ready, it was taken to another side where a team with greater knowledge of Fuinjutsu worked on it immediately and was stored inside scrolls to be delivered to ninjas. "So that's how these things work," he murmured, now understanding how the puppet creation process worked in this camp. Soon his thoughts were interrupted by the entry of a group of ninjas into the place. Everyone immediately stood up and bowed. Minato ended up following the group, making the same gesture while looking at the ninjas, especially the one with red hair. "How are the constructions going? We need at least 500 more puppets to deal with the ninjas from AIM and Konoha," he said. "This place will soon have all the puppets ready," Commander Akasuna no Kai, another ninja replied. "That name. Is he Chiyo's son and Sasori's father?" Minato thought, looking carefully at the man in front of him. "That's good. We've suffered a horrible defeat in recent months. Although we are still winning the war, we haven't been able to penetrate the borders of Konoha. That's why we need to bring some results for Kazekage-sama. He is getting impatient," he said in a harsh tone as all the Jonins nodded. "It shall be done, Commander," they quickly spoke. "That's good." Akasuna no Kai looked around the site, while Minato felt an even more intense gaze from that group. Being a much younger man next to Akasuna no Kai, he saw this man looking at him intensely, and this quickly made him move a few millimeters almost imperceptibly in case he needed to act at this moment, as he might be discovered right now. "Any problems, Raza?" Akasuna no Kai said curiously, sensing his gaze on a young man there. "Strange, the amount of chakra he has is enormous," Raza murmured, looking at Minato with surprise. "That's true," Akasuna no Kai also murmured, studying Minato. "It's almost as much as my son, Sasori." Akasuna no Kai couldn't help but be surprised, seeing the boy there with so much chakra. But what they didn't know was that Minato had 60% of his chakra impaired by the poison in his arm. We'll see him later, anyway. Akasuna no Kai turned his attention back to the group in the tent. We'll be waiting for the new batch of puppets soon. In the meantime, keep working, he said, saying goodbye to the place. Minato sighed. He didn't have much time. He needed to find some identity for himself here. Before they discovered he was a spy, he wanted at least the information about the poison or even where Chio was. Keep working, the Jonin exclaimed some time later as everyone returned to work again. After a few hours, Minato left the tent going to the middle of the camp. He had taken clothes from a ninja who would soon be reported missing within the camp, and he could be suspected, so Minato continued walking to the same tent, going to rest while waiting for it to darken. After all, he had the plan to enter the record tent and forge some data about him. Not that it would work much, but it would give him a few days before he was suspected. He hoped at least to collect the information he wanted by then. Minato waited, and his attention turned to the main tent, where there was a meeting going on at that moment, while Akasuna no Kai was with Raza, which surprised Minato since he had seen him. After all, this young man, slightly older than him, would be the future fourth Kazekage, father of Gaara. So I want you to deliver this to the Kazekage and set up a meeting for him to send us more funds for an attack against Konoha. Akasuna no Kai spoke in a serious tone. He was quite active when it came to attacking Konoha. Yes, he released the Shikaku, but he still hasn't authorized us to use it on the battlefield, which doesn't make sense. Raza agreed in a dissatisfied tone. Maybe it's because the Leaf Village might use the Kyuubi. Our Kazekage fears that we can't handle that beast unleashed on the battlefield, Kai said. Wasn't the fox transferred to a new host after the death of the first Hokage's wife? Why is he afraid of that? Raza continued mockingly. He didn't have much power yet in the village at this time, as he was a 20-year-old, although already considered one of the strongest ninjas, but politically, still weak. That's exactly why, being a new host, the Leaf Village might simply discard him, using the fox in the war. Things haven't been going well for Konoha since the start of the war, so... he murmured. Yes, still, I see no reason why we should cower. Let's just attack them, and even with the fox, we have our bijou and we will win, Raza said. Although Minato didn't like the idea of the Konoha village wanting to use Kushina to release the Kyuubi while she died in the process, but he could understand their reasoning, despite knowing they were wrong in thinking that the Kyuubi has the same power as Shikaku or even that the village would really use it. They never used it in any war in the original work, which made Minato dismiss this possibility, which relieved him. After all, he would never let Kushina be killed, even if he was treated as a traitor after that. Minato let go of these thoughts as he heard something interesting from the meeting through his haki. So I want you to go to the village, Raza. I also want you to give me the data on that boy. My son will be coming to the battlefield soon. It's time for you to have a team, maybe form the best team of this generation with my son and that boy. There's also that girl Pakura, who hears very well. Maybe it's time for Suna to create a team like no other. Kai spoke while Raza nodded. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as Minato Namikaze. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.